Hello again, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us for this Saturday's edition of Alaska Weather, 9th day of January 2021. I'm Dave Percy, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service, and I'll be hosting today's show. Up first, let's see, hazardous weather graphic. We have high wind warnings out for the central and south coast of the Panhandle, and that's out for until 6 a.m. Sunday, and that's for gusts 25 to 35 miles an hour sustained, or with sustained winds 25 to 35 miles an hour, and gusts to 60 or a little above miles per hour. And that's kind of the low end range for damage to occur. That can uproot trees in areas that don't normally see 60 mile an hour wind gusts too often. So it just enters the high wind warning criteria. And up to the north, though, that's a winter storm warning for heavy snow, and that's was a watch yesterday, and that's for the Klondike Highway and the Haines Highway, including Haines and, Skagway, and everywhere in between there. That's for the 6 to 14 inches of snow, and that warning is out until 6 p.m. Sunday evening, tomorrow evening. And then out to the west there, that's a winter weather advisory, and that's out until Monday morning for St. Lawrence Island, Bering Strait coast, gusty north winds and blowing snow, and visibility is down under half mile at times in the blowing snow, with winds pretty gusty there, 40, 50 miles an hour or so. And that's out again through Sunday night into early Monday. And from there, looking at the satellite imagery, you can see two systems and frontal boundaries almost identical, but one out over the central Aleutians, the other one there with the low and southeast of Kodiak, actually a couple centers there. One southeast of Kodiak, one west of the Queen Charlotte Islands, the frontal boundary pressing up toward the southeast coast and the North Gulf coast. And then the other one out there in the west with, again, kind of a complex low center out there, two centers kind of embedded in the overall cyclonic flow. Over the central Aleutians, one just west of Nikolsky. And that frontal boundaries there actually looks like a couple of frontal boundaries, one over the Alaska Peninsula and then the other one over the Fox Islands, and they kind of merge into one big cloud mass over the Pribilofs, extending up toward Nunavik Island, Cape Neuinem, and across the southern Bering Sea. Then the winds become northwesterly there, out west of Adak and Shimia, and then cold air again coming through into the northern Bering Sea through the Bering Strait there. And the western interior pretty dry, a lot of cirrus, higher level clouds moving into the eastern interior, north of the Yukon River to about the Brooks Range. And areas of light snow again over the northwest part of the state, weak disturbance there, but amounts not too heavy at all, that really just less than half an inch, some areas none at all. Some areas could have got a little bit more than a half an inch, but say around Sleep Mute, they picked up about, maybe around an inch of new snow today. And that was about the heaviest amount I could find. A little bit more precipitation over the Panhandle. A little gustier winds as well there with that front pushing in, but rainfall amounts not all that impressive really down that way. Last 12 hours, Petersburg got 0.15 of an inch of precipitation. Angoon about 0.18, just under 0.2 of an inch. And actually higher elevation, or the Upsall areas of Prince of Wales Island had upwards of just under an inch of precipitation there. But a little bit of light precipitation along the North Gulf Coast, a few hundredths at Cordova. Seward, picked up 0.12 of an inch of precipitation. That's all 12-hour period amounts there. And then Seldovia, though, 0.3 of an inch of precipitation there. And then not too bad, Kodiak Island, sort of in between, some rain, but nothing real heavy as compared to the areas off to the east there. Heaviest rain and wind is remaining off the coast, but still, Cape Decision, gusts 54 miles an hour with that tighter gradient there, and Sitka, gust to 45 miles an hour. And as that system off to the southwest pulls up to the north tonight and into tomorrow, that's why the high wind warning is out for those areas. And then moisture surging northward into the northern Lynn Canal area and again up the Klondike Haynes Highway will result in, again, 6 to 14 inches of snow. Otherwise, mixed precipitation today, areas for the North Gulf Coast, Kenai Peninsula, especially on down to the south, but it's all light, as I mentioned. No dry over the interior areas, and offshore flow keeping it dry all along the west coast areas. There's some clearing occurring there north of Nunivak Island, but quite a mixture of precipitation and conditions out over the Bering Sea and the Aleutians. For tonight, the low centers kind of pull off to the east, and so that's going to allow the cold air to come southward. That'll push snowfall levels back down to sea level there for the Aleutians, even up toward the Alaska Peninsula. And then Kodiak Island, mostly looking at rain with continued east-southeast winds. And then the strong winds, gusts 60, 65 miles an hour coming onto the south and central coast of the Panhandle, and then the heavier snow to the north there. But stays dry over the interior. Maybe the wind's picking up a little bit there over the central and southern part of the state. And weak trough keeps light snow or snow flurries or snow showers, areas of fog along the western Arctic coast. Again, that's remnants of the moisture that's been there for the last couple of days, kind of lifting up to the north now, drying out over Norton Sound with some clearing, as well as the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta coast. Again, variably to mostly cloudy over the interior, some areas being mostly clear. And for tomorrow, we'll see that low center. Those low centers kind of backing. They don't actually pass across the southeast coast in body. They kind of rotate back to the west-northwest as they die a slow death doing so. But we still have some frontal action off the southeast coast. That'll be good for gale force winds tomorrow with periods of rain, possibly moderate to maybe heavy at times. Snowfall levels above sea level, so you get any snow, you got to get some elevation. That same pattern also for the North Gulf Coast. Bering Sea, snowfall levels right down to sea level to the Aleutians, and actually south of the Aleutians there, with the cold air coming down pretty good with the low center parked over the Alaska Peninsula. Areas of snow showers possible for the North Slope and the Arctic coast into the Brooks Range, but the central interior and even a more widespread area, say from the Yukon Delta on up to the Noatak Valley, into the western Brooks Range will be precipitation free. But those northerly winds you can see getting a little gusty as supporting the winter weather advisory for St. Lawrence Island through tomorrow and tomorrow night there, as that moisture still, as the cold air still picks up moisture just enough to produce a little bit of light snow, and that gets blown around. And again, visibility is maybe down to a half mile or less. Not the worst conditions you could see for this time of year, but definitely making the advisory criteria. Excuse me. And then for Monday, call it cold air still surging southward over the Bering Sea, or mainly the eastern Bering Sea. So it could be some blowing snow conditions with temperatures below freezing for the Pribilofs, and also the eastern Aleutians possibly, with maybe few inches of new snow possible. Kind of snowy also for the western Aleutians, and then low now southwest of Shelikof Strait, or south of Chignik there. Keeps east-southeast flow into Kodiak, damp, unsettled there. Same pattern for the North Gulf Coast. Maybe precipitation not quite as heavy, but new system rolling up late in the day, increases the winds again, and that gradient pretty tight along the entire stretch of the southeast coast, and especially down toward the Queen Charlottes with rain on the increase, moderate to heavy, especially across Prince of Wales Island. Otherwise, the interior not looking too bad. And for the lows tonight, coldest there, North Slope, Arctic coast, anywhere from 5 to 25 below zero, and then single numbers below zero for the Brooks Range into the upper Yukon Valley, a little below zero for the Tanana Valley, Fairbanks area, all the way out to the southwest coast, and Savunga, 7 below for your low, 17 for the Pribilofs, and upper 20s, lower 30s for the Aleutians. Panhandle, pretty mild under southerly flow, as well as Kodiak Island, North Gulf Coast. Mid to upper 30s there, mid 20s, Anchorage area, Madawaska-Susitna Valley, just above zero for the Copper River Basin. Highs tomorrow, Copper River Basin in the teens, lower teens, and lower to mid 30s for the inland areas of southern Alaska to near 40 at Homer and Seward, with mid 40s for the central and southern Panhandle, lower 30s over the Alaska Peninsula, maybe mid 30s, lower to mid 30s for the Aleutians, and a little below zero for the Arctic coast. Otherwise, everyone rising just about above zero. And then lows will be below zero for St. Lawrence Island on Monday morning, as well as the portions of the Brooks Range are mostly in the north slope to the Arctic coast, running 5 to 15 below for your lows, maybe down to 20 below. Umiat Airfield, for example. In the mid to upper 30s for the Panhandle, staying mild and above freezing, as well as the North Gulf Coast. Back down into the mid 20s, south central Alaska, and either side of zero in the central interior, with highs in the teens in the central interior to near zero on the Arctic coast, and lower 30s south central Alaska.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
First line weather graphics Sunday morning, IFR western Arctic coast, then marginal VFR down across the central western North Slope, and Brooks Range, and then on down across Kotzebue, Selawik, and much of the Seward Peninsula. And Norton Sound, though, VFR, same for St. Lawrence Island, Yukon, and the Kuskokwim Delta, except for the Kuskokwim Delta coastline, and IFR for the Pribilofs, on down across the Alaska Peninsula into Bristol Bay. Probably south of King Salmon and the Aleutian Range, though, IFR, Kodiak Island IFR, and that stretches up across southern Kamishak Bay and Seldovia, Port Moller IFR, but Homer, hopefully marginal. Seward possibly IFR, and Prince William Sound and the North Gulf Coast IFR. And then that banks up right along the coastline of the Panhandle, marginal VFR elsewhere. But by the afternoon, IFR overtakes, probably by midday, IFR has overtaken the entire southeast coast and continues with the North Gulf Coast, Prince William Sound, down the Kenai Peninsula there, all of Kodiak Island, into southern Cook Inlet, again kind of cutting off there at Kachemak Bay, and then southern Bristol Bay, on up across Togiak Bay, Cape Newenham, west side of Nunivak Island, Pribilofs, all IFR, Alaska Peninsula, marginal for the Fox Islands, VFR for Adak and Atka, Shimei and Attu, VFR also with a narrow band IFR in between, IFR, eastern central Arctic coast. And there we go. For Monday morning, not bad, North Slope Arctic coast, marginal VFR with the IFR area just hanging off the east central coast there. And then some IFR south side of the Brooks Range into the Yukon Flats there, down along the river, as in Yukon River to just north or near Eagle, probably to the north. Areas of marginal VFR in the interior, as well as scattered areas of VFR, right on down till you get to the coastline. And then a big batch of IFR there from just east of the Pribilofs across Unalaska Island, east side there, Dutch Harbor, Alaska Peninsula, Kodiak, across the Gulf, and from, say, Cordova eastward on into the central Panhandle. And not bad out west there. You can see still some VFR with just areas of marginal VFR. And for the afternoon, same forecast, marginal VFR, Kiska, Adak, Amchitka, VFR, Shimei, Attu, and Atka, with IFR right up along the southwest coast, but south of Nunivak Island, but covering all of Bristol Bay. And eastward there, slipping through the Kamishak Gap on down across Kodiak Island, and IFR for Prince William Sound and the North Gulf Coast Range there, and IFR for the Panhandle, except for Lynn Canal Glacier Bay, looking marginal, and mostly marginal over the interior with scattered areas of VFR, especially the east side and along the west coast and the east central North Slope Arctic coast. PASA is looking at VFR generally for Adigan, possible marginal VFR northern entrance, same forecast for Adigan, Lake Clark and Merrill, occasional marginal VFR. Rainy though, I think will improve to VFR after some early marginal conditions. Windy VFR, Isabel VFR, Mentasta also VFR, Tanita VFR on the western entrance, otherwise you head east there, marginal VFR conditions should lower a little bit. And for Portage, marginal VFR, IFR hanging on the eastern entrance. Chilkoot and White starting out marginal, then next system moisture increasing brings conditions back to the IFR levels. And for the freezing levels, at the surface pushed back down toward the Fox Islands, Alaska Peninsula, but hugging the coastline up and over across the northern Panhandle, 2,000 feet in the Gulf, bisecting the southeast coast, and icing. Next front pushing in, increasing considerable moderate rime icing throughout the day and into the afternoon along the coast of the Panhandle, slipping even farther eastward in the south and hanging up along the North Gulf Coast, southern Kenai Peninsula. And for jet streams, well south of the Aleutians there, but that low coming in southeast of Kodiak Island, south winds increase, but the strongest course stays just clips Dixon entrance there across the Queen Charlotte's and 9,000 feet. 60 knot winds into the Panhandle, southeast 60, let's say Manuska Valley, north 55 for the central Aleutians. 3,000-foot winds, 40 to 55 knots, eastern North Gulf Coast and the Panhandle. Northerlies to northeasterlies, 40 to 55 knots, eastern northern Bering Sea. And then for turbulence, quite an area here, moderate chop, northern Cook Inlet, all the way down toward Dixon Entrance, the Aleutians, southwest interior, and eastern Norton Sound and Nulato Hills along the Yukon River.
It's kind of hard to explain how important weather is to our job. I mean, it really affects everything we do.
In 2018, NOAA launches the GOES-S satellite, which takes its place in orbit as GOES-17. Working together with GOES-16, the two new geostationary weather satellites will provide constant watch over the United States and the Western Hemisphere, from the west coast of Africa all the way to New Zealand, helping monitor severe storms, wildfires, and daily weather patterns. Since its launch, NOAA's GOES-16 satellite has already demonstrated its critical capability for keeping our nation weather ready. Throughout the active 2017 hurricane season, GOES-16 delivered imagery with detail and clarity never achieved before, with 4 times greater resolution than previous NOAA satellites, and delivered this imagery faster than ever before, helping forecasters predict the path of a storm and where and when it will intensify. These accurate and timely forecasts allowed for emergency managers to prepare for evacuations, map flood areas, and save lives.
So the weather matters. The weather matters before the weather happens, and the weather matters after the event happens, because what we're able to do to prepare, allocate resources, provide information to the public through the media beforehand, and what we're able to do afterwards, how and when the waters are going to recede, so we know we can get vehicles with life-saving food and shelter equipment down a particular highway. All of that depends on the forecast.
In the GOES West position, GOES-17 will be able to provide critical data for the westernmost United States, Alaska, and Hawaii.
We're talking about getting data updates in just seconds, so we can quickly spot wildfires and closely monitor the wind direction and their intensity. The crispness of the data coming in at a faster rate will also help with fog forecasts. We can see the moment the strata starts to develop or when it starts to move out.
Like GOES-16, GOES-17 carries a suite of advanced instruments, including tools for sophisticated earth sensing, lightning detecting, solar imaging, and space weather monitoring. As an equal partner in the sky, GOES-17 will expand coverage of the advanced baseline imager technology across the Pacific Ocean, allowing meteorologists and local officials to see severe weather systems developing in real time.
So instead of seeing something, say, this large, that as you zoom in actually gets kind of blurry, you're actually going to see something that is much more detailed.
In its GOES West position, GOES-17 will be able to monitor conditions in the western U.S. like wildfires, coastal fog, and atmospheric rivers when storms from the Pacific dump heavy rain and snow over the western U.S. GOES-17 will have a major impact on fighting wildfires in California. Up-to-the-minute information and crisp detail allows forecasters to spot fires faster than ever before, even before the first 911 calls come in, and to better track and predict the path of large, dynamic, and dangerous fires.
It's amazing to see what we can get and at the level of detail and the speed that we can get the information down into the ground that makes our decision making way more accurate.
With a view of the Pacific Ocean, GOES-17 will also provide a critical eye over shipping lanes vital to the U.S. economy, protecting cargo and passenger vessels from dangerous ocean storms. GOES-17 will also provide a high-definition view over Alaska, resulting in better weather forecasts and improved monitoring of sea ice, wildfires, and volcanic ash. The advanced baseline imager on GOES-17 can distinguish between clouds, sea ice, and snow cover, a critical need during Alaska's dark, cloudy winter months. GOES-17's geostationary lightning mapper monitors lightning flashes, including the in-cloud lightning most prevalent in severe storms, helping forecasters determine when a storm is forming, intensifying, and becoming more dangerous. Thanks to GOES-17, emergency managers will be equipped with more accurate weather predictions and faster warnings, providing a real impact, saving lives and protecting infrastructure. Watching over Earth from 22,300 miles above, GOES-S will provide vital data to our weather-ready nation.
Hi, I'm JPSS. I'm a high-tech weather satellite that orbits our planet. I do something called a polar orbit. I circle the Earth from North Pole to South Pole, over and over, while the Earth spins. While I do that, I get lots of information about what's going on around the globe. I watch storms, clouds, and rain. I take the temperature of the ocean, measure air quality, ozone health, and take pictures of the land and sea. This information is used for all kinds of things. It helps us take care of our coasts and oceans and all the amazing things that live there. It helps us monitor harmful weather events like floods and droughts and measure the health of the environment. Most importantly, it helps us predict weather 3 to 7 days in the future. That means I can be a big help ahead of storms, where future warnings are important. I send information to the National Weather Service. They use the information to create forecasts. The forecasts are shared with people all over the country to help prepare for weather emergencies. So you look to the sky and wave. I'll be flying by.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Looking at today's sea ice analysis. Pretty solid there. Norton Sound on out to St. Lawrence Island, and still a ways to go till it gets to St. Matthew Island. And then it thins out there south of Nunivak Island and continues to thin out as usual there as you head southeast across Kuskokwim Bay into Togiak Bay, even less in Bristol Bay. And we've got some ice still a little bit south of the Forelands in Cook Inlet. And moving on to the coastal water forecast for the, there we go. For tomorrow, high-end gales for the coast out of the south and southeast, 40 to 45 knots, and seas up to 26 feet. Small craft advisories, Lynn Canal, south winds 25 knots, seas 5 feet, and gale force gusts from the southeast at 45 knots there for Stevens Passage, with sustained winds for Clarence Strait at 40 knots, seas 10 feet. And then small craft advisories are Clarence Strait on Monday, winds coming down to 25 knots from the south. We have south to southeast 35 knots for minimum gale warnings for the south coast, and the north coast, small craft advisories, southeast winds 25 knots, seas around 20 feet. And not too bad wind-wise, Lynn Canal south at 15. Prince William Sound, pretty brisk tomorrow. East, sustained 30 knots, seas 7 feet, and 45 knots for full gales for the eastern North Gulf Coast. Seas up to 25 feet, and gale warnings, western North Gulf Coast and the Barren Islands, but storm warnings there for Kamishak Bay, not Kachemak, Kamishak Bay, northeast 50 knots, just under storm force winds for southern Cook Inlet, northeast 45 knots, north 30, north of the Forelands. Those will fall back to about 20 knots there for northern Cook Inlet on Monday, and 25 knots south of the Forelands. Kamishak Bay east at 20. Barren Islands and the western North Gulf Coast, south winds 20 knots, 15-foot seas. Small craft advisories, eastern North Gulf Coast, southeast 25, turn east at 25 in Prince William Sound. And for Kodiak Island, on the east side there, winds southeast 20 knots, but seas up just under 20 feet. Shelikof Strait, east winds at 30 knots, but seas at 10 feet. And then Sitkanak to Castle Cape, south at 20. Castle Cape to Cape Sarachev, northwest 30 knots, good for small craft advisories. North 30 there on the top side of the peninsula, Bering Sea side. And gale warnings for Bristol Bay for northeasterlies sustained at 35 knots. Those will drop down to 25 knots from the same direction there for Bristol Bay on Monday. Seas coming down to 4 feet. And small craft advisories, Alaska Peninsula, north to northwest winds 30 knots, 12 to 15-foot seas. Small craft advisories for Kodiak Island, east-southeast, 25 knots, and seas 5 to 15 feet with the 5-foot seas there in Shelikof Strait. And for the Fox Islands, Northerly winds tomorrow, 30 knots, seas 15 to 25 feet, call it. And then small craft advisories also for the AKwx area with north winds at 25 to 30 knots. And gale warnings from Amchitka Island for northerlies 35 knots. Those become northwest at the same speed for Kiska, Shimei, and Attu. And for Monday, small craft advisories, western Aleutians there for 25 knot winds. AKwx northwest at 30 knots. Gale warnings for the Fox Islands, both Unmac, Unalaska, and Akun Island, and all the smaller ones that I didn't mention there. Gales northwest 35 to 40 knots. Southwest coast, northerlies 30 to 35 knots. Gale warnings for the northern Bering Sea. Yukon Delta coast, St. Lawrence Island out of the north 35, otherwise the Pribilof north at 30, as well as Norton Sound. And down to 20 knots for Norton Sound on Monday, but 40 knots out of the north for St. Lawrence Island. Gales down along the Yukon Delta coast, and small craft advisories, north-northwest winds at 30 for the northern Bering Sea along the Kuskokwim Delta coast and the Pribilofs. Beaufort Sea coast, all northeast 15 knots over toward Demarcation Point, become easterly at 20. And then brisk wind advisories from Cape Beaufort all the way down to Wales north, 25 to 30 knots. And that continues, and actually brisk wind advisories extend up to St. Point Lay with those 25 knot winds. But gales now for the area from Wales to Cape Thompson, northeast 20 knots for the eastern and central Arctic coast. For tonight, look for some light snow showers or flurries to occur up there for the western Arctic coast on down, maybe into the Noatak Valley. Along the coast there, Kivalina, maybe some flurries or light snow, but none of that amounting to much. Better chance for some a little bit heavier snow, Alaska Peninsula, eastern Aleutians, as surges of cold air continue to drop down across the Bering Sea toward the Aleutians. And surges of warm air coming up with another system there with increasing wind and rain for the Panhandle, North Gulf Coast, and dry and fair over the interior. And for tomorrow, again, wet, windy conditions, gale force winds, southeast coast, North Gulf Coast, and rain mixed with snow along the coast, and a lot of widespread snow showers over the Bering Sea.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.